Welcome to another installment of Soul Nectar that show that talks about all things essence. Sitting around the campfire, sharing stories of connection and awakening and remembering who we are in truth. And those special stories that really, sitting around the campfire, we hear that story and we relate. It opens our heart. It makes us go, oh, I've had a moment like that, or wow, that's powerful. I wish I had a moment like that. And we can share our stories. I'm Carrie Hummingbird, your host and guide for this show. I'm so delighted to be in service in this way. And today I am interviewing Johanna Lynn. She is someone I've met through all of my thought leader people. She's amazing. She facilitates transformative work, providing solutions for the emotional patterns that we all inherit from our family. And how perfect is this interview? And you guys are going to find out in just a little bit, because it's all perfect by spirit, people. We often notice the influence of what we have inherited when our health, relationships, or life goals seem compromised. Johanna is committed to resolving painful patterns from living out in the next generation as if on repeat. So if you guys have had things like that happen, this is what that conversation is. If she had a superpower, it would have to be listening like a detective to the facts of your family history. The words you use to describe your challenges lead her directly to where the most effective resolution is for you. And the intention of her work is to contribute to world peace one family at a time. And I can totally get behind that mission. Y'all know I'm all about that. So, Johanna, I warned you. We get vulnerable in this show. Vulnerable and authentic, and really telling our stories, because that's how we learn. There's so much untruth in this world, people covering up and lying and pretending and trying to be something they're not, perfect or whatever they think perfect is. And in this show, it's all about real. So tell us something that's going to open our hearts. Tell us about you.
Well, first of all, how refreshing that the whole show is sort of designed around bringing your heart, bringing that vulnerability. That's kind of the waters that I swim in every day with my clients. And so it's just so nice to have that welcomed. I really appreciate that, Carrie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. Gosh, thinking all the way back to being a kid, trying to find what is my path, what's most meaningful to me. And I guess it's, 20 years or a little bit more than that by now. I started off working as a massage therapist, really wanting to have that intimate connection with people, understanding the stories that live in the body. And I think when you are a massage therapist, if any of your listeners are, they're also part, regular therapist. A lot of the challenges with marriage or if they're unhappy with their work come out. And that's the long way that I found my way to this work. In that, working with people every week, or if they'd come back once a month and realizing that thing going on in your neck or that stuff in your low back, that's not really musculoskeletal. That's the relationship you're unhappy in, or that's the job you keep wanting to leave, but somehow can't muster up the courage, that our body holds all these stories. Certainly my own did, after a car accident that kind of stopped my ability to really be in full-time massage therapy, and recognizing it was one of those, you're going this way in life and life wants to turn you around and go another direction.
I've had those moments.
Yeah, really big learning. That's it. Yeah, and so it's sort of a roundabout way that I found my way to this work, which is often the way it goes. I don't think there's any direct path. We sort of move through the learnings along the way.
Absolutely true. I definitely would have never said 10 years ago that I was going to be a soul guide.
Right, that's
What
it,
is that? It
How
isn't
we
even
find
religious or
ourselves.
anything. Yeah.
That's it. How we find ourselves in these roles. It's kind of wild.
Well, I love what you do in the world because you actually work with constellations.
That's right. That's right. That's the basis of sort of none of us get to be the way we are by accident, chromosomally, biologically. We're half our mom and half our dad. And that gives us lots to work with when we're looking at our own life's challenges, how we track it back to find that real solution that really makes a difference.
So tell a little bit more about it, about constellations and what it is and what you do for the listeners who
Mhm.
aren't familiar with it, because I've actually participated in one, which I'm
Great.
happy to share in this broadcast. But first, let's set the stage.
Absolutely. It's good to have everyone know what the heck we're talking about.
Right, because we're all in
Um,
the know, you know?
That's it. That's it. So constellations are this powerful tool to really show us or point a light towards a pattern that we might not be aware that's kind of running the show from behind. And so when I have a constellation group, I'll often start going around the circle. We set up the room in a circle so that everybody's facing each other. And just like you started this show, Carrie, it's about putting vulnerability, getting that sacred container of trust, and allowing people to know that they can really go to those deep, authentic, true places. So I ask people to be as factual as they can, to move away from the story of what's happened, because at the deepest level of us, at the subconscious level, we can't tell if the story we're reciting, happened yesterday or happened 20 years ago. And a lot of the times that same stress response fires off as we retell the story. So I'm a real stickler for staying with the facts. And it's amazing how the facts of the family lead us directly to what's going on in our marriage, with our health, with the development of our business. And so within a constellation, we're really looking to find what you're up against, what the challenge of the day is, and how that tracks back to what lives in your family history. I often will share with my clients, it's sort of like a computer analogy, that none of us are born with a clean hard drive. Think of it like sharing an operating system with your parents, with your grandparents, even your great grandparents in some cases. And what's really neat to see is science has finally caught up to what we've seen in this work for decades, in that it's true. What's unresolved, these experiences for our grandparents and our parents, it's like a bit of an imprint or a template that's carried on in the very DNA. And constellation works to unravel that, bring awareness, and ultimately integration to that piece. It's so profound. It's beautiful work.
I love it. And I want to just really also let people know the coolest thing about constellations is that it's not something done from the left brain.
Right.
It's not from the left brain at all. It's not about talking about it,
Yeah,
in the sense of sitting down in your psychotherapy chair and like sitting there and telling the whole story for an hour. It's
exactly.
experiential. It's right brained. And I so love right brain healing. So tell us a little bit about that right brain stuff that you do, like how your
Yeah.
understanding of how it works. Because I've had my own experiences of it. Tell us what your experiences of that right brain healing, how that's really different.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure many of your listeners can relate because they've likely been on their own personal journey for some time. And we can read all the books and we can get it up here, but unless we have enough capacity, enough experience to let it drop down into the body, we might still be stuck in those same patterns. So that's what I've really come to appreciate about this style over the years, is that it drops down into the body. And what I mean by that is, within the constellation, we're kind of tracking the sensations of your body, tracking those physical responses, really following patterns of breath. We can notice even what wants to be said, but maybe isn't being said. And so we can fill in that mystery that might have been carried on for generations. And one of my teachers out of Connecticut, I love that she said this about constellations. It's always stuck with me, that a lot of the times as the facilitator, we're a little bit like, what did she say? The custodian. We're turning on the lights of the family and maybe saying, hey, let's look over here. How about this, pile of dust or mess over here? That we're bringing some new light to things that maybe have been buried and tucked away for years on end.
And maybe just hidden in plain sight, because the language reveals everything, like you were saying.
That's it.
And the thing is, the stuff you're doing in your life is exactly in response to the messages that are underlying.
That's it. So if we think about it back from that computer example, we're sort of running that operating system that might be, 50 years old, and we haven't yet felt the reason or the need to update it. And so a lot of the times we might notice that in that same argument, that same frustration we might be feeling with our spouse, or our child runs into a really serious problem, and we have to realize what our part in it, or how history might be replaying in that situation. So it is
Exactly.
hidden in plain sight. You're right.
It's a huge thing. I'll confess that I participated in my first constellation last year around this time.
Oh, I'd
And
love
I
to hear about
never
your experience.
it was so cool. So I was actually at the Evolutionary Business Council, and they had one as part of the group. And
Great.
I went in and I was like, okay, awesome. I'm up for new experiences. I love healing work. So I was like, yeah, because I've learned that when you go into that shadow space, it's
Mhm.
a little scary because you're not sure what's going to come up. But if you can
Right.
trust the process, you get out the other side and you get this huge aha that just like opens it all up. Like it just, the potential for that to just unlock your block is like
Mhm.
so exciting. So I went into it with that attitude, like, okay, great. I'm going to get this healing. And it wasn't even my constellation.
Aha.
It was someone else's constellation.
Yeah.
And she was a woman, and she was dealing with, a father figure and herself as a child.
Okay.
So she had those characters in play. And so this is kind of going to give you guys some insight into how the whole thing works. It's so cool. So the facilitator had her observing, and then she went and picked someone to be her father, and he stood out in the middle, and she picked someone to be her little girl, and she came in.
Yeah.
And we're witnessing kind of the moving around of things. And I think it didn't start off exactly that way, so I'm not telling it exactly accurately. But they started progressing, and then people in the room started feeling like, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to be over here, or I feel like I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is that she was chasing her prosperity. Somebody was being her prosperity, and she was chasing her prosperity around the room.
Okay.
And then her prosperity kept running from her. And we're trying to figure out, why is her prosperity running from her, right? And I was having
Uh-huh.
similar challenges in my business. Like, why is my prosperity running from me? Like, I've got all these skills. Why is this not gelling? I don't understand.
Mm.
And my business coaches were like, we don't get it either. Like, what's happening? So it was really, I was engaged with this. So what ended up happening is two people next to me said, we feel like we need to be little children. We feel so silly. We feel really goofy, and we don't know why. And they asked the facilitator, we feel goofy. And he said, well, if you feel, then you need to act it out. So they came out and they started acting silly and skipping around the room and being really silly. And then one of them fell and hurt their ankle, actually,
Mm.
in this process. So not exactly like what you want to happen. But was so key, because the candidate whose constellation it was all of a sudden said, see, it's not safe to play.
Ah.
And as
Yeah.
soon as she said that, I was 3 years old
Hmm.
with my first stepfather beating me because I touched his guitar.
Mm.
And I knew that was my agreement. It's not safe to play.
Mm.
So I had been out there playing really hard to prove that it was safe to play,
Yeah.
my compensatory identity. Meanwhile, my cracked identity was like a bull with the, like, no, we can't. We can't
Yeah.
do any of this because this is way too much fun. It's not safe to play. And I
Got it.
was like brought into this like cathartic release with that awareness. Like my whole life literally flashed before me.
Well, it's so amazing that you bring this story forward, Carrie, because I don't think people can really even believe it unless they go and experience it. That even participating in someone else's constellation, even just observing what's going on, can have such opening and healing movements for everybody in the room. So the founder of this work, I mean, he's 92 and still facilitates this work. Had about 800 or 900 people in Mexico just a few months back, facilitating this work. And the larger the collective, the more powerful the group healing. It's so phenomenal. And this whole concept that we are all one it never hits home more closely than after hosting a workshop experience. And it's just that beautiful story you've described that kind of explains how these universal things are shared, even though it feels so personal to our own history.
Exactly. I remember that moment where I realized that exact point, that you're
Yeah.
not unique. Like, you are unique and you're not unique. It was when I was in
Hmm.
energy medicine school at the Four Winds, and one of the classes, they start to teach you how to tune into another person, how to go
Yeah.
on journey on behalf of another person. And I remember I was with my little rattle, and I'm bringing myself, and I'm tuning into my client, my my partner, and I'm dreaming
Yeah.
into her life. And I was seeing things, everything I was seeing looked like my life. And I got really concerned. And so when I got done with the meditation, I walked up to the founder of the school, Alberto, and I said, Alberto, I feel like I'm projecting my
Mm.
story onto her. How do I know? Like, how do I know this isn't a projection? Like, I'm making it up and I'm just like projecting my life onto this woman. Like, how do I know
Yeah.
it's really her story? And he kind of looked off the distance the way he always did. And he just kind of went, well, Carrie, there's one way to find out. Why don't you tell her?
Right,
Why don't you
right.
tell her and see what happens? Because see, he said, your thing is you think you're special.
Mm.
Why don't you go tell her and trust spirit and see what happens? And I did. And I told her, and she said, oh my God, that's my life.
Mm.
And I looked at her,
Wow.
I said, well, that's my life. And we had
And no
this
wonder the
moment.
two of you are partners. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
always amazing to me because I'll lead the constellation and say, please choose a representative, for your mom, your spouse, whatever it is we're working on. And it's amazing to me who out of a group of strangers who they pick is usually the ideal person to step into that experience for their own personal healing. There's no mistakes in the universe, that's for sure.
It was uncanny. And it was in that moment that I really learned, okay, trust spirit, really trust what you're seeing. And all you can do is share it.
That's it.
And if it doesn't
That's
resonate, it doesn't resonate. And if it doesn't resonate, that doesn't mean it's not true either. Because sometimes it doesn't resonate because the ego is like, no, that's not me. And he often talked
That's
about that too. If you really think it's not you, watch out.
yeah.
Because that one is definitely you. If you think that's not me and you're really anti against it, it's like, yeah, you better take a look at that.
Exactly. Oh, that's a profound experience. And what confirmation for you to know by sharing that okay, I'm not projecting. This is very much a experience we share together.
And I love the way that you talk about, family dynamics rippling
Mm.
down through the family, the patterns repeating. And it's almost like it's so much part of the water that we're swimming in that we don't
Mm.
even see it. It's like we're not even aware that that's something that could actually change. And that if
Right.
that thing changed, things would be like way better. So
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about
Well,
how this work helps you to show people that, or maybe your own life, how it helped you to see that.
absolutely. And I think you're right. When we're in it, we're so close. We don't have that objective view to really make a different choice. So, what I mean by that is, let's say you're in a marriage and it feels like, gosh, whatever I think isn't listened to. Why doesn't my opinion matter? Well, we look back, just, maybe in your own upbringing or what went on for mom and dad, is where was I not listened to? Where did my voice not matter? And so what painful part is repeating. Whenever I work with couples and certainly in my first marriage, our partners show up exactly as we need them to show us what's unhealed in us. And so it really took the end of my marriage to really look at, ooh, who was I being in how things crumbled and how things came apart. Um, I think it can be so easy that we just blame the other person and think they did X, Y, and Z, but we don't get any freedom from that. We don't get free from potentially recreating the very same thing with the next partner until we can sort of hold, gosh, how was I showing up? what part of this whole dynamic actually felt familiar and actually made a lot of sense, so that we can try to gain a lot of insight, wisdom, and learning from even the most painful experiences.
I love that you say that. And it's definitely been one of the more powerful realizations I've had in my spiritual journey has been that,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm in relationship with someone, it's sort of like that PhD program. It's like you just signed up for a PhD program in understanding and seeing yourself. Come on now. You
Without a
asked for
doubt.
it.
Well, I truly see relationship as a path, this kind of idea that with you, you help me to see more of myself. I mean, everything would all be ideal if we're all monks on a mountaintop meditating and we're not in the day to day of,
Yeah.
what triggers us in life. And so even in the most challenging pieces with your partner, is it possible to look at him in the eyes or look at her heart to heart and say, thank you, even in this frustrating part, you help me to grow. You help me to learn more about myself. You help me to see, oh gosh, I thought that piece was healed with my mom or with my dad, but here it is again in kind of this different flavor. So thank you for showing me it's still a live wire in the body. Now I know where I need to do a little more fine tuning, a little more personal work.
And from my own personal journey on this, I want to just encourage people to realize like there's some things that are so vulnerable
Mm.
that you might need to take a break and go process it, a different way. Like you might need to go, okay, this, like whenever we engage, it goes,
Yeah.
we need to kind of like take a breather
Mm-hmm.
and then use that awareness of the to go, okay, what is that in me? Where is that? And how can I clean that up? And I'll often encourage clients to even do what I call soul to soul discussion. So
Mm-hmm.
set up a little intention space for this person, put their picture there, put a little candle, put some flowers, whatever you feel you want to honor this person in your life that you're having this current problem with. So I'll just confess, my mother and I have we are challenged, we
Mm-hmm.
are definitely challenged. My dad just passed away in
Sorry to hear that.
October. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's been with me since I was 5. So early childhood, very tumultuous, very
Mm-hmm.
not good examples of fatherhood. But then from
Mm-hmm.
5 on, like the best dad, like
Mm-hmm.
people, you can't top him. He was awesome. So really great dad. And he just recently passed away. So my dad was kind of like this buffer between me and my mom. And now he's suddenly gone and she's grieving and there's all this pain and I'm grieving. And so in this moment, I was trying to like be the loyal daughter and call every day and check on her and how are you and all this. And it was just creating more animosity. Like it was actually worse that I was reaching out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'm witnessing that. It's like giving her an outlet for the bad feelings, but I don't want to be the dog that gets kicked. You know,
Well, and
I'm
the
not,
other
I
part,
don't sign
the
up
other
for that anymore.
no, and the other part of this, Carrie, it's very interesting. I'm actually just about to teach. I have a training program on this work, and this is the piece that we're going to talk about today. So it's interesting you bring this up.
Of course.
There, the timing. There are 70 orders of love, that how love flows inside of a family, and why this stuff isn't taught in schools, I'll never understand. We only find out about it if we're pressed, in our own relationships. But the first order of love, which sort of shows how very important it is that a parent gives and a child receives. And so even though it's a passing of your father and it's huge, I mean, the biggest piece for both you and your mom, that part of you that reaches out to touch base to see if she's okay, you move into taking care of her. You
Yeah,
move into
that's the
that.
relationship we've had my whole life.
And so no
Yeah.
wonder, no wonder it's been tumultuous.
Oh
No wonder
yeah.
it's been challenging. And so wherever possible, if your listeners notice themselves in this place, what would it look like? And for you too to try on, Carrie, what would it look like to show up as your mother's daughter? How can you receive from her, love the way she gives it? And I'll have some clients look at me as if I've just started speaking Greek,
Yeah, like
like,
me. Like,
what are you talking about?
I don't
Yeah.
know, because her love looks like I'm going to criticize you.
Yeah.
I'm
And
going to tell you that
so,
you're crazy and you're a fringe person and, you know,
yeah.
all this painful
And
stuff.
it's painful stuff. And so we can't go back into a relationship that feels critical, that feels like we have to self protect without a really resilient boundary. To know that so much about what the criticism might be is simply because she doesn't understand what lights you up, your work, your world. And so it's easier to criticize than lean in to understand. And so, even in situations like this, it's, gosh, how can I receive from my mom? And a simple thing you might want to try is, let's say your mom's just watching TV and you've come over for a little visit. And so you might just say to her, "Hey, mom, can I sit with you and watch TV?" And you sit as close to her as your body will let you, like as comfortably as you can. Sit close to her on the couch. And I mean, she just thinks you're watching TV together, but you're matching your breath to her breath. You're starting to feel like that little girl again, like that little 3-year-old who came alive in the constellation, who's feeling close, connected, maybe even taken care of by mom. In this way, you're respecting where she's at. She doesn't want to talk about childhood and feelings and energy,
No,
and
she
that's not
doesn't
her,
want to talk about any of that.
that's it. That's not her world.
No.
But you're recalibrating your body with hers by simply sitting in this way with the intention to reconnect. Because when we have a difficult relationship with our mom, mom is synonymous with life. So how we feel about our mom shows up in our marriage, shows up in our business, shows up with our own children. It's the main piece to really work with.
It's really interesting because what I ended up doing in energy medicine school was that I changed allegiances.
What does that mean? Tell me
I
more about that.
I said the earth is my mother.
Yes, a lot of us do a spiritual bypass
I
when we
just went,
don't feel.
earth is my mother, and this is
And
the
so,
consciousness that guides me. This is the one that brings me
yeah.
nourishment. It gave me a body, you know. All
So
right,
Mother Earth did
Mother
not give
Earth.
you Mother Earth did not give you a body. Your physical mother built your body
Mm.
with her cells, her blood, her nourishment. And I think the spiritual bypass is something we do when it doesn't feel safe to receive our mom's love, when it's mixed with criticism, when it's mixed with her own hurt or the things that she hasn't resolved. But as we live in this life, as we give birth to our own children, we pass on what's unresolved between our own mom and dad. And so it really helps us to go back into that place of, yes, I live on Mother Earth and I can love and respect her and I can commune in that way. And there's one woman on this planet who birthed me into being. And for many of us, Carrie, I've heard some really intense family stories.
Oh
For
yeah,
many,
I'm
yeah,
sure.
for many of us, the only thing we can say is, Mom, you gave me this life. And how do we really land in our own resilience to let that be more than enough? There is no greater gift to give than the passing on of life. And so how do we, stop hoping, wishing that it'll someday be any different with her? She's given enough, and there's sort of this strength that comes in when we say, and I'll take it from here. How does that land in your body when you hear something like that, Carrie?
Well, I think for me, what feels appropriate right now is, this sort of honoring her from afar, like,
Yeah, keeping
you
a
know,
bit of a
with
healthy distance. Yeah,
little from for now, I don't know how long that will last, but for now, to just put a little altar up, put her picture there,
that's
talk to
beautiful.
her, just,
Similar to the example that you gave about difficult and challenging, like intimate relationships when you need that little bit of space.
yeah. And I think the space creates time for it to sort itself out, because I don't think Well, I know that a lot of times talking about it, especially in this context,
Mhm.
words are problematic because
Well,
words
and
can be misinterpreted.
of
See,
course.
my throat chakra just got all blocked up.
And what I absolutely love about what you just shared is we have to have an internal relationship first before we feel safe enough to go back into a relationship that's been hard our whole life.
Exactly.
So having that picture, maybe even a dialogue with the picture for some time, and what I really work a lot, and this has been my own work, Carrie, and certainly what I share with my clients, is how do I gain understanding about how mom got to be the way she is? So this idea of course she's critical. Look at how her relationship with grandma was. Or gosh, she lost her dad when she was such a little girl, and she had to be the independent one. Whatever the issue is, whatever the family history is, we kind of build that bridge of compassion. So in a way, we can step away from it being so personal. We begin to
Absolutely.
hear it differently. Yeah.
And I know a lot of pieces of that story. So,
Good. That helps.
yeah. So I do privately. Yeah. When I say privately, I mean like the soul to soul connection or the distance
Yeah.
healing,
Yeah, like your inner work with her.
distance
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's the version. Now here's, okay, let's go there. So what
Mhm.
I've noticed in myself and then when I'm working with clients is that
Yeah.
it's really the version of the parent that lives within you. That's the one that
Mm.
needs to be healed, because we're all carrying around, this sort of replica of the person inside of us, inside of our subconscious mind, right? So
Yes.
all of the stories that we put around this person, all the ways that we perceive them, we're sort of walking around with that, inner version of that person. And if you close your eyes and you go into a meditative space, you can actually get that person right in front of you and you can witness them, like who you've created that person to be. But that's just your version of that person. That's just your idea of who they are based on all the stories you told from the time you were little that compounded each other into this version of person that's standing in your mind. So that when you see the person in front of you, the physical person, you're not seeing them at all. You're seeing this version of them that you concocted in your mind. It's like they're
Well said.
representative, you know?
That's right. Well said. Yeah.
And they're like, that's not me. And, and I really learned that lesson because with energy medicine, you change fast. And with like, I would
Hmm.
consider constellation work to be energy medicine as well. When you do
I
this kind
would.
of work, you actually change so fast, so rapidly that you don't even recognize yourself from a year
Yeah.
ago. Like you're like, who is that person? So what happened along my journey, I did a really fast path. I surrendered everything. Like I like spirit of death, take it all and
Uh-huh.
bring to me who I truly am. I surrender it. I surrender it all. And I have been doing that for years now. Like I just surrender it. I surrender my ego. I don't know who I am. I let spirit tell me. And that is a fast way to change. It is also a little disconcerting sometimes, but it's a very fast way to change. And what happens is that every time you show up in your family again, you see it from new eyes. But I had to
Absolutely.
realize that she was still seeing me as the person that the version that she's got living in her mind.
Got
That's
it.
the one she sees. She doesn't see who I am today. She can't see me. In fact, she's not able to see me.
Well, and
So
it's
it's
never
like,
it's
oh,
never about, our mom doing her work or our spouse doing his work. It's really about us taking full responsibility and showing up differently in that relationship.
yeah,
And
but I'm not going to be the person that she thinks I am anymore because I'm not that person. So I can't
exactly.
fulfill that desire that she has to keep me in that box. That
Yeah.
doesn't work for me. I'm not going to do that anymore. So,
Yeah.
so I have to know that's part of what's challenging for me is to keep reminding myself, and I can do it for brief periods of time, but to
Mm-hmm.
remind myself, she's reacting to the old me.
Uh-huh.
She doesn't see me today.
Well, and a lot of what those reactions are, believe it or not, are not even addressed to us. So it's almost like we want to imagine taking our mom by the shoulders and turning her back to face her own mom or her own dad. That a
Yeah.
lot of what wasn't resolved or said there is being projected out to us.
Such a
And if
good point.
and if we're not careful, it goes right down to our own kids. We've got to have that awareness to sort of say, no, 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 no. This rests with me. I resolve it. I'll do that inner work to change how I hold my mom inside.
You just gave me a really great insight. Okay,
Hmm.
consider this. Okay, so see, I hope this is really helpful for you guys that I'm vulnerable like this and I share these things because I think it does give insight into how this whole process works. So,
Yes.
my grandmother, my mom's mom, it was
Yes.
very religious, like very devoted. And
Hmm.
she went to Southern Baptist Church. The whole family went 5 days a week. It was a big deal. And my mom, when she was little, started seeing some hypocrisies because they're West Texas, at the time of the 60s and Martin Luther King and the whole thing. So there
Yeah.
was conflicts, right? There was like one message that wasn't being upheld with this other message and the two didn't match, and so my mom got turned off and was like, forget that whole thing. I don't want any of it. So my mom went
Right.
the other way and said, no, no, none of that stuff for me. I don't even know if I
Hmm.
believe in God.
Okay.
And here comes me. And what am I doing?
Yeah.
She's like caught in a sandwich of spirit.
And so
And
no
that's really the
wonder.
biggest thing. And she felt judged by her mother. Like her mother was very like, you know, my grandma,
How could you turn your back on this, and
how
how could
could
you
you?
walk away for sure?
Yeah. And, caught up in the whole story of the church and the things that she was taught.
Yeah.
And so here I come along and I'm like, this is the great spirit. This is our stuff. And my mom's just like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, how did I make you?
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of the things, so, okay, I know that she felt very criticized by her mother.
Hmm.
And now look at me. I went and published my book about my
Uh-huh.
story, Awakening to Me. I told my journey of recovering, like getting out of madness, getting out of this like craziness that I was living in, and
Uh-huh.
finding my way to the Great Spirit, finding my way home.
Hmm.
And so she takes everything personally that I do. She thinks it's about her. So who am I again? Her mother criticizing her
Yeah.
for not being in tune, for turning your back, for not being
That's
awake.
it.
You know,
And so exactly what I mean, what you have felt is directed at you is really her mom, your mom and your grandmother, unfinished business.
so now this is a really interesting thing.
Hmm.
Here's my idea.
Please.
What if the next time I see her, I go in prepared? What if I channel my grandmother?
No. So that's
No?
you being your mom's therapist. That's you coming in to help. That's you coming in with, I know
I know.
this.
I
And
want to rescue her.
no,
Oh, I know, and I can't. That's the thing. I can't save her.
the best place for you to be with your mom is coming in as her daughter.
Yeah.
Hey mom, what do you think I should do about this?
No, I don't like
Hey
to ask her
mom,
that opinion.
I'm really sad about this
Not
or that.
open to that. I do
And
that, and then
so
it turns sour. I'll do that, and I'll open up to that, and then it's just,
expect that it turns sour, Carrie, because for her entire experience with you, it's been this feeling of you didn't give me enough or I felt judged, because it's very much filtered through how this undone stuff with her and her own mom. So if you can step out of the personalization of that part, the whole faith and spirituality, and her feeling like, where do I fit? How is this right? She's being made to feel like she's doing things all wrong. And so, of course, we'll come back with criticism if that's what we feel on our side. So,
yeah, and I really
regardless
felt
of,
that energy of competition,
ah,
like my whole life, like anytime I would shine, it wasn't like a cheerleading thing going on. There was either like
Mm-hmm.
not seeing it or just barely acknowledging it, or like just this energy of downright competition. It's like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my journey of stepping out to do this work has been like, well, I can't do anything about that, but I've got to shine my light. Like I've got to get out in the world and shine this light, and
Absolutely.
then
And
just keep cutting the cords and cleaning up the daggers, like seriously.
well, I guess what caught me when I was following and really listening to what you were sharing is I came home to myself, coming home to spirit. And I think the basis of this work and where it's different is we come home to our parents. We rest in their highest nature, meaning all parents unconditionally love their children. And there are many times in families where that love gets distorted based on how they were wounded, how they were hurt, based on how those patterns repeat. And so, how do we actually receive sometimes the sorry that was never spoken? How do we receive the fullness of their love, even if they could never say, I'm proud of you? That it's less important for them to say, I get you, Carrie. I get what you're about. I think it's great what your message is. And it's so much more important for us to work on that for ourselves. I get myself and I know what I'm doing is important. And I don't look for acknowledgement from
Yeah,
my
I
mom who's
stopped
not able
looking
to
there.
give it.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
coming from there. I know that now. It's
Yeah.
not going to come from there.
And that's okay.
It's okay. And it's kind of like that part of like letting them be who they are and just recognizing she's not like if she's yelling at me,
Mm-hmm.
she's partially really yelling at my grandmother.
Well, and herself,
And herself. Yeah.
it's a really big part around stepping out of belonging with your family. That really courageous part of your mom that goes, I'm not sure this is adding up. I'm not sure this is where I want to invest my time and energy. I think I need to find my own path that might be very separate from what the rest of my family is doing. And so, to honor that part of your mom, that she followed, that she went to the beat of her own drum, which sounds to me is a very important part of what you love about yourself.
Yeah, it's actually very true.
So how do we gain resources from the style of parenting that we had, instead of always looking at, it shouldn't have been this way, I wish she didn't say that, I wish that didn't happen? How do we notice those things we really appreciate about ourselves and say, gosh, I'm really self-reliant because my mom and dad were so busy providing and weren't available to me as much as I would have liked them to be. But I like how self-reliant I am, as one example.
Yeah, and to find, I guess I feel like what you're hinting at is finding those points of commonality where you can say, this is something I'm really grateful for that
Yeah,
I learned from you.
that's it. I get this from you and I love it. And,
Yeah.
and another big leap actually from that place is I also accept the parts you couldn't give to me. And I agree to it. I understand it. No wonder you can't step into the world of spirituality if you felt like the world of religion was jammed down your throat. You're not going to want to go anywhere near anything that even hints at it. So I'm going to not take it personally. It's not about that. So we can kind of untangle and separate out those pieces.
That is so good. So, wow,
Mhm.
profound stuff. Awesome.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for going to those deep and vulnerable
Oh,
places
yeah, I always
today.
do. I'm always happy to be the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Well, because, the way I look at it is that it's uncomfortable to face
Yeah.
these things, right?
Yeah.
But I'm so glad for the insight that comes on the other side that helps me move forward, because what's the goal? And for my 18-year-old who's just moved out, like literally this past weekend,
Hmm.
that was a really interesting experience of us talking and working through those issues of like
Yeah.
just recognizing, wow, you're ready. You're at that place. And I want to honor you and do it. For me, I wanted to do it different. I wanted to say, wow, I'm really proud of you. I
Mhm.
see you. I see you. You're a young man. You're stepping in. You're planning your life. And I see that for you to do that the best, I need to back off. Like, I need to let you grow
Mhm.
while I'm still here hard connected with you. And I need to
Right.
talk with you and say, what's your experience? What do you need from me? And how can I be of
Mhm.
service? And, and then share my heart and my truth. And I did that with him, and he shared his heart and his truth with me. I mean, he actually uttered these words, Mom, I'm really keeping my heart open through this whole process.
It's beautiful.
I was like,
What
that's my
words from
son.
an 18-year-old man? That's beautiful.
I was like, wow, Carrie. I was like, mm.
No
Like really happy
kidding.
and really glad that I could be vulnerable and make that, because that's the most important thing. And to be honest, that's the most important thing to me in all of my relationships,
Mhm.
is that heart connection.
Well, it's what truly is that meaning that keeps us connected beyond the conflict, beyond when things get sticky. And I think only when we can remain open and honest with the self and other can we really experience that.
Yeah, that is so
Mhm.
true. Well,
Mhm.
your parents are your mirror, and it's the most intimate mirror, your children and your parents.
Mhm. Absolutely.
They really show you who you are.
Yes, the things we don't want to see and the things where we're quite happy about. Yes. It's all mixed in, isn't it?
It is mixed in, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why I like the other processing methods. The solo processing of the things that you're noticing, and then when you kind of digest all that, you become a different person.
Yes.
You become a more healed person, and then the more healed person is going to have greater capability going back in for another round. It's like, okay, I've
That's it. Well, we
integrated
have
this.
to build enough of a self to be able to go in to hold that boundary when the criticism does come in so that we don't respond in the same way. There's a part of us that goes, okay, I know where this is coming from. I'm hearing it with new ears, with more aware ears, and I don't have to take it personally or react the same way. And it can take a little bit of our own inner work, a little bit of time to get to that place.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
But to keep moving forward and to keep trying and to not give up, that's really the opportunity,
Yeah.
to give yourself space if that's what you need, but then, do that inner processing, because that is a mirror, and you're right, it's not going to go away. That's it.
Mhm.
You're seeing it because it's also you. You're like seeing it because it lives in you. If it didn't live in you, you wouldn't be triggered by it.
Well, and I think for me, to be honest, it was such a motivating factor to recognize if I don't sort of have love flow differently here in this primary relationship with my parents, it's going to come up again with my child. It's going to live out again in my marriage. I'm going to face it inside of my business. And I just didn't want those same themes kind of running me from behind. And so
Oh, running you from
sometimes we
behind.
need
Ooh,
that, yeah, we need
that
that encouragement.
resonates.
Yeah.
Because you can
Because
only kind of do this for so long. Like, and
exactly.
that's what I've been doing. I've been saying, no, this is where it stops. Like, I am not doing that.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
haven't.
it's like holding the water
But
back from the
it takes
dam.
so much energy to hold the water back from the dam. You're
It
so
does.
right. That really drains me. Whew.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really a lot of effort.
that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so profound. Well, thank you. This has been really enlightening for me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation and gotten a lot of, so now you have a flavor of like kind of what this looks like in how
Yeah.
you can start really unraveling these dynamics like within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
Awesome.
it's been such a great conversation,
I
Carrie. Thanks
know.
for going
I
through those
love it.
valuable times. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm on the world. I'm all out there for the world to see. Like, okay. All right. Well, that was wonderful. So tell us a little bit about how you would like people to connect with you, and the opportunities
Absolutely.
that you have for them to participate and play with you.
That sounds great. So you can find me, my website is simply my name, johannalynn.ca, JohannALYNN.ca. And under my same name, you can find me on Facebook. I love to share articles about epigenetics and the latest in neuroscience and all that's coming out about family dynamics and how much it influences our life today. I just love to share and so the main articles that are coming out about that. And certainly if this has really called to you, or there's the piece that you'd like to know more about, you're more than welcome to reach me by email, and we can certainly sit down over a phone conversation and explore how family history might be influencing what you're up against today. So you can reach me by email at connect@johannalynn.ca.
Wonderful. And Johanna is also one of our experts on Skills Not Pills. So you can join us on Skills Not Pills Summit coming up in May to hear about all this other stuff, this cool science stuff that we're going to be talking about. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on for the spiritual portion of our discussion together and our collaboration. And, you know, everybody, I encourage you to look into this constellation work and to look into how you can process your primary relationships in a different way than maybe you have so far to get some new results. Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, well, here come the kisses, everybody. You guys ready? Here they come. I always give people kisses. Here they come. Mwah.
Oh, thank you. Well received and right back at ya.
Yay. Mwah. Bye, guys. I'll see you next week on Soul Nectar.